France, 1386. A kingdom aching under the weight of plague and war. The 100 Years' War had drained its coffers, and feudal loyalties fractured like frozen rivers underfoot. The courts were not places of fairness, they were theaters of power. Riddled with corruption and noble privilege dot this unforgiving world, justice was rarely served. But on a frostbitten December morning outside Paris, it would be fought for on horseback, in armor, before thousands dot, and it would all begin with a knight Jean de Carrouges, a man whose soul bore more scars than his battered mail. He had shed blood for France, seen friends die in foreign fields, and returned home to find his land stolen and his name cast into silence. No feast awaited him, no fortune, only honor, and a growing fire within. That fire would soon find fuel, Jean's. Life took a turn when he married Marguerite de Bouville, a noble woman of sharp mind and calm strength. Their union was not merely of affection, it was an alliance. With her lineage came prestige, but also danger. The halls of power were no place for the faint-hearted. One name haunted those halls: Jacques Le Gris, charming, wealthy, well-read. Le Gris had once been Jean's comrade-in-arms, a man who drank at his table and laughed beside him in battle camps. But fortune favored Le Gris. Under the patronage of Count Pierre de Lincoln, he climbed swiftly through the ranks, acquiring titles Jean believed were his by right. Jealousy, perhaps, or betrayal. Whatever it was, the two men who once toasted victory now glared across banquet halls. Then came the spark that would set the kingdom ablaze. Early 1386, Jean was summoned to serve with the army. He rode off in armor, as he had done countless times before. But this time, he left Marguerite behind. When he returned weeks later, she was not the same. With trembling breath and unflinching resolve, she told Jean what had happened. That Jacques Le Gris, his former brother-in-arms, had come to their estate uninvited, that he had forced himself upon her, that he had stolen something no court could restore. It was an accusation made not in whispers, but in full voice. And in that moment, Jean faced a new war. The court scoffed. Le Gris denied it all, claiming innocence with polished eloquence. The Count protected him. The nobles laughed behind closed doors. Jean's honor, already bruised by years of loss now, boiled with rage. He took the only path left. He demanded trial by combat, a duel, sanctioned by the king, a final reckoning before God and country. King Charles VI, perhaps curious or indifferent, approved. After all, this was spectacle as much as justice. The people would watch. The nobles would wager. But for Jean and Marguerite, this wasn't sport, it was survival. If Jean lost, Marguerite would be burned alive for false accusation. Paris, December 29, 1386. A wooden arena was erected beside the Abbey of Saint Martin des Champs. The air was brittle, frost clinging to the edges of every plank. Thousands gathered, commoners, shivering in cloaks, nobles leaning from balconies, priests clutching crucifixes. In the heart of the arena stood Marguerite, cloaked in pale wool, her life now hung by a thread of steel. Trumpets blared. From opposite gates emerged the two combatants. Jean de Carrouges, his armor weathered, sword etched with the wear of war. Behind the visor, his eyes burned with quiet fury. Jock le Gris, silver-trimmed plate gleaming, confident even now. The silence shattered. Steel crashed against steel. Horses reared. Swords sparked. Each strike was thunder, each movement desperate. Jean fought with the fury of a man who had nothing left to lose. Le Gris, swift and ruthless, countered with practiced finesse. They clashed again, and again shields splintered. Breath steaming in the cold, Le Gris nearly unseated Jean with a vicious blow, but Jean recovered, driving forward, rage guiding every strike. Finally, Jean forced Le Gris to the ground. The crowd held its breath. Jean raised his sword, a pause, one last chance to confess. Le Gris said nothing. The blade came down. Le Gris was dead. The arena erupted. Marguerite's life was spared. Jean stood victorious not just as a knight, but as a husband who had defied a world stacked against him. But the whispers didn't stop. Some claimed Le Gris was innocent, that it had all been political, that Jean had won. But truth had lost. Centuries passed. The duel faded into parchment and footnotes. Yet the image remained. A man kneeling in blood-soaked snow, sword in hand, heart torn between justice and vengeance. Jean de Carrouges did not win glory that day. He won silence. He won survival. But for one brief moment, in a world ruled by power and deceit, he carved truth into history not with a pen, but with a blade. This was the last trial by combat ever sanctioned by the French crown. Afterward, Jean returned to war. He died in battle. Marguerite vanished from the records. But on that frozen morning, the world witnessed something rare. A woman who dared to speak. A man who dared to believe her. And a fight not for conquest, but for truth. In an age where lies lived longer than love. Jean de Carrouges raised his sword for the one thing the world refused to hear, his wife's voice. And in doing so, he made history listen.